Good evening, everyone. Bill Rentschler alongside sports director Kevin Sjuts in the 1011 Now streaming studio, recapping, I think, what was a pretty fun day. Spring game, Frank Solich, new Herbie Husker. There's kind of a lot to unpack here, Kevin. I guess right out of the gate, kind of what were your first takeaways of the game, of Frank, of Herbie? A lot to talk about today.
My biggest takeaway right now is that the most popular video on 1011now.com is not of the game.
Nope.
Not of Matt Rule. Not of Frank Solich. It's Herbie Husker.
It's Herbie Husker. A lot of people have some really strong feelings.
Unbelievable.
Really strong feelings about new Herbie Husker.
The most watched video is of new Herbie. Maybe it was the motorcycle.
It could have been the motorcycle. It was a really nice bike.
What an entrance. Wow.
I would have loved to have been on that bike.
So Herbie Husker, that's my big takeaway.
Yeah.
As for the football, a little sloppy.
A little bit.
Yeah, I mean, the team didn't look amazing. No one's going to say, wow, they're going to win the Big Ten West this year.
No, I would agree.
Jeff Sims did some nice things. I thought the offensive line looked pretty good. Mm-hmm. But, of course, Frank Solich is what everybody's going to talk about at the end of the day.
And you called it first play, a little handoff to fullback Janiron Bonner. Mm-hmm. And then they stopped, gave the ball to Frank. And, again, I thought that was a neat moment.
Yeah, it was just a simple fullback dive off the left-hand side. He cut it outside a little bit, 7-yard pickup. Then they paused the game, so they just started. But Frank was already on the field, and it was Matt Rule that went and got the ball, walked across the field, handed it to Coach Solich, and he was standing next to Trev Alberts. That was a really neat moment. And then, you know, it wasn't just that one moment for Frank Solich. What they did at halftime was really special. For those that were in attendance, probably experienced some goosebumps. You saw Coach Solich get a little bit emotional. Same for his wife. And then just a slew of pictures. And I thought BTN's telecast of the Frank Solich, you know, usually halftime is a chance to promote the school, cut away, talk about other things, but they stayed on it. They showed the crowd. They had a little bit of a backstory with Frank Solich. They showed the video tribute that was on the big screen on the north end of Memorial Stadium. And it was very tasteful for the way it was portrayed on television. And then in person, it seemed like everybody that experienced it thought it was pretty awesome. And it was fit. It was long overdue. And, you know, if you're going to bring back a coach and do something that you've wanted to for so long, you'd want to do it right. I feel like Nebraska, in every instance here with Frank Solich's return, they did it right. With the numbers on the field, with the first play from scrimmage, with halftime, and then even the event that happened on Friday night with Coach Osborne, Barry Alvarez, and so many of the guys that played for Coach Solich. Hopefully he leaves here saying, wow, I was welcomed back with open arms, and I want to come back soon. Yeah,
I'll have to check and see if they have direct flights from Boise to Lincoln. Maybe that's one of the new ones that they can add. But again, you said it. A lot was done, but again, it never felt like too much. And again, he deserved it. You know, 40-some-odd years, I think, between being a player, assistant coach, head coach. He deserved all the good things that came his way this weekend. As far as the football is concerned, Kevin, I have just a few stats. We can kind of go through them. You kind of mentioned it. It wasn't, I mean, it was a spring game. It wasn't super crisp.
They didn't have any big explosive plays. I mean, they had the long pass over the middle to Nate Borkercher. Jeff Sims' touchdown run, it was only 8 yards, but it's pretty nice.
It was. It spun out of a tackle, I think.
Yep, and then he initiated some contact at the goal line. But really, there was no wow factor. I remember Jamal Turner, when he played in Nebraska, he flipped into the end zone. We've had a walk-off touchdown reception before. The football, I mean, it left a lot to be desired. But I did like the fact that it was all-out contact.
It was.
They tried a few fake punts, and it wasn't like, oh, I got you, I'm going to tap you, and the play's over. No, Brian Buschini was tackled twice. And we got a good look at what the 3-3-5 defense looked like. And so maybe my big football takeaway, and now I'm kind of thinking and articulating my thoughts, was you got to see the way that this defense can come at you from different angles. They blitzed often. The 3 down linemen, the 3 at the second level, and then the 5 in the back end. Now, will that be effective against a Wisconsin team that likes to run the football?
Just punch you in the mouth.
We'll wait and see.
Yeah.
But it's a pretty multiple defense, and it looks like Nebraska has some dudes on the back end that can really fit that defense well. Quentin Newsom, Miles Farmer, You know, Tommy Hill had a nice game.
I think
Malcolm Hartzog.
Isaac Gifford was playing in that rover position,
Yeah.
I think, a lot. And there was some good, I mean, from what I saw, again, as just a casual fan observer, again, you would know better than I felt like there was some good talent on the defensive front with some of the newcomers. I'm not even going to try and say his last name, but Princewell.
Yeah.
I think he had 3 tackles for loss, a sack, a forced fumble. I mean, I think almost everyone had a forced fumble today, but there was some good play there.
Yeah, Princewell, that's a good shout-out. He had a really nice game. Kai Wallen, you know, a newcomer for Nebraska, a JUCO transfer. He had a really nice game as well. So, yeah, the defensive front, keep in mind, that group did not have Ty Robinson, who was out for the spring with an injury. So, in the linebacking core wasn't at full health either. So, you know, knowing that they weren't, you know, locked and loaded, ready for game one, this is just kind of a patchwork defense. Thought they looked pretty good, even though there were 28 points given up. However, one of those was a defensive score. So really,
that probably would have been an incomplete pass.
2 offensive touchdowns in the game.
Yep.
So yeah, I thought the defense played well. Gage Stinger, can't leave him out.
Nope, interception at the very end.
The game, and he had a couple of really nice sticks in there.
And a forced fumble too. So.
Yeah, kind of that coincided with the physical nature of the Red game.
Matt Rule kind of said it after the game. You know, a game like this, you know, you're causing turnovers, which is good. Your defense is causing turnovers, but that means your offense is the one coughing up the ball or something like that. So, again, kind of some mixed feelings, I think, from Coach Rule on all the fumbles and the turnovers.
8 total fumbles.
A lot of fumbles.
6 were lost. A few of those were center quarterback exchanges.
Yes.
There was one where the handoff didn't get placed correctly, or there might have been a lead blocker that knocked the ball out. All things to work through, of course, but Nebraska, Matt Rule said he was not going to keep it vanilla. I still felt like it was fairly vanilla, but I think that's just because of where Nebraska is. You can't start getting too creative when you have to conquer the basics. We got to see the fullback. We got to see quarterbacks under center. Let's not overlook that. Most of the snaps were under center. And a lot of people were very impressed with Jeff Sims. If you replace Jeff Sims with KC offense, is the offense the same, better, or worse? Don't really know right now. I like Casey Thompson. I think he really has a shot at being Nebraska's starting quarterback when the season rolls around in late August. But then again, I think Jeff Sims does as well.
I mean, I think you'd have to give Casey maybe the advantage just doing what he did last year. I mean, he toughed through a lot last year, but it's a very narrow margin. You know, maybe 51-49 at this point. It will be an interesting quarterback battle come fall camp.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of people who would probably agree with you, Bill, that Casey has the edge. But I would say I don't know that you can necessarily use what Casey did last year to say he has the leg up this year, because the offense is different. What the expectations are of the quarterback, totally different. You know, Casey last year ran a lot out of the gun, and he threw the ball a lot. We saw today the quarterbacks are going to run the football. I don't know that necessarily lends itself to Casey Thompson being the #1 guy. But, hey, we're not short of storylines for fall camp.
No, we are not.
Front and center will be the quarterback situation at Nebraska.
Yep, absolutely. Really quickly, again, you kind of mentioned it, but again, not a lot of huge plays. Running backs today were kind of so-so. I think Gabe Urban, he scored a touchdown, made a nice move to score. Anthony Grant had some decent rushing yards. A.J. Allen got a couple carries. Emmett Johnson got a couple carries. I think overall, I think they averaged out at maybe 2.5, 3 yards a carry, something like that. So it was kind of tough running the ball a little bit. So again, kind of credit to the defensive line, both for the white team and the red team.
A lot of the runs were between the tackles too. There wasn't, pitches out to the wide side or running the option and flipping it out and letting a running back run in space. So they're trying to establish these guys being able to read blocks and hit a hole and go. Again, the running game is going to be predicated by the quarterback. And we saw Heinrich Harbin keep it on an option, had a nice 23-yard pickup. That was in the first half. And I felt like Heinrich played pretty well.
I think he did too. And I thought Chuba Purdy played pretty well too. I think, all 4 quarterbacks that played, 5 quarterbacks, Jack Wochi got in, I think, for a little bit. But I think all 4, the 4 of the main ones that played all played pretty well. Richard Torres had some good zip on the ball. He, again, first time seeing him kind of play under the lights a little bit in some meaningful snaps. And so, again, I think Coach Rule has a lot of good problems to have heading into summer in terms of having some good quarterbacks to choose from, running backs to choose from. Wide receivers, I think, looked okay. He's had some drops.
16 different players caught passes today. So there was nice spread. It wasn't, this wasn't your Trey Palmer receive fest, Nobody was taking the lid off of the defense. Billy Kemp showed some flashes. I love the fact that they went to him on the two-point conversion. He's going to be a pretty important weapon to this offense, I believe. But Marcus Washington, Billy Kemp, they appear to be the guys at the front of the wide receiver group. Xavier Betts was targeted in the end zone. I like to see that. So they have options there. But you know what? Like, I wonder what, Coach McGuire, Garrett McGuire, the young 24-year-old coach, how did he feel about today? There's got to be a pinch me moment for him, too, right?
Probably, yeah. I mean, his first time, he coached obviously with the Panthers, but his first time, coaching on the sidelines of Memorial Stadium with, 60, I think it was 66,000 was the announced attendance. So a lot of good moments for both players and coaches today.
And there's some really nice comments from the players that were at the postgame news conference talking about being in front of Husker Nation. MJ Sherman had a great quote about, I love kids. And that was the thing that caught his eyes. It wasn't the 66,000 plus. It was the amount of youngsters that attended the football game and wanted autographs, wanted handshakes, and all of that. So that meant a lot to him. And this is a guy that came from Georgia. So it's not like he's not aware of what big-time football looks like.
No, he knows.
But he really enjoyed this experience, and you can watch those interviews at 1011now.com and hear Matt Rule and the guys all talk about Husker Nation, the reception, and then just the atmosphere. I know it wasn't the weather that they wanted, the players at least.
No.
But it was football. It felt a little bit November-ish out there. But it was good to see the Sea of Red back inside Memorial Stadium.
Really quickly, I also just want to say, I think MJ Sherman, because you brought him up, and Eric Gilbert, they both looked the part. Those Georgia transfers, and even Jacob Hood, the offensive lineman, I think he might have gone out maybe with a little bit of an injury. But all three of those Georgia transfers all looked big. They were put together young men. And so we'll be anxious to kind of watch them develop here over the next several weeks and months. So what comes next, Kevin? We have 131 days until the opener at Minnesota.
I'm impressed that you have the exact number.
I had to look it up.
131. August 31st. It's a Thursday night kickoff to start the year. So hopefully fans enjoyed today at Memorial Stadium because Nebraska begins the year with back-to-back road games. They're at Minnesota, at Colorado.
September 16th.
The first home game is mid-September. So if you want to see the Huskers in person, you not only need a ticket on the road, but you need to make sure you save up for the hotel and the gas money to get to either Minneapolis or Boulder.
Well, we have the new direct flight to Minneapolis, which should help get the carry those Husker fans up to Minnesota for that game. So, again, Kevin, you mentioned it, but again, we have complete coverage, everything from, again, new Herbie Husker, all the Frank Solich stuff, and, again, all the player interviews. That's all on right now on 1011now.com. And, again, Kevin...
Is Herbie going to be the #1 viewed video at the end of the day?
I mean, he's pretty far up there.
Can I petition to have people click on the Frank Solich or the postgame news conferences?
So, I mean, I've clicked on all of them, so I've done my share. But, again, he's got almost at least a double over.
I'm not trying to trash on Herbie Husker here.
No.
I mean, it's fantastic that they have a new mascot that everybody really just loves. But
I don't know if it's everyone loves. I think everyone is passionate about in one way or the other.
Well, out of all the things that we gather at a Nebraska football spring game, are you going to tell me that video of a mascot riding a motorcycle is going to be the top dog?
It could be. I'll let you know tomorrow after all the final numbers.
Unbelievable.
Might have to give it a few days and kind of let the numbers settle a little bit. We'll come back and we'll look at it. So.
Well, I think if this is the case, Frank Solich just lost his name off of the locker room. It's going to be the Herbie Husker locker room.
He was pretty
gracious.
Oh yeah. Well,
but what a day! Not a shortage of storylines.
No, absolutely
Matt Rule first time, new Herbie Husker, Frank Solich here, and then of course a football team that played a game with a 21-7 final score.
Absolutely. All right. Well, Kevin, I appreciate it again. Thanks for jumping in here in the 1011 Now streaming studio again. All of this is all online, 1011now.com. So make sure you keep it tuned for all the latest news, weather, and sports from 1011. So appreciate everyone for tuning in. Hope everyone has a nice Saturday night. We'll see you next time.